Good afternoon again, everyone. Welcome to the first workshop session, which is part of a two-session tourism-related workshop. Today's workshop is on how to start a campground business, and I am joined today by Penny Luckcraft, who will be our presenter today. Penny has done quite a bit of research on this topic, and we're very excited to find out more about this business. We are seeing that many people are deciding that they want to explore different areas. And as they explore different areas, they're looking for different experiences. And so they're looking for those experiences that are not necessarily the traditional condo rental, the traditional hotel rental. And so we're seeing more interest by entrepreneurs in starting campground businesses and Airbnbs. I will remind you that if you have signed up for the session next week on Airbnb businesses, we did have to move that time the same day, June 15th, but it will be at 3 p.m. and I will be sending out a notification on that. I'm the director with the Small Business Development Center in Abingdon, Virginia. We are hosted on the campus of Virginia Highlands Community College, and if I didn't say this, my name is Cindy Fields. We are a partner with the Small Business Center Administration and the localities that we serve. We serve small businesses in a number of different areas. We work with those businesses that are trying to get started, but we also have a large percentage of our work that is focused towards those businesses that need to understand how to grow their business. We have many different resources available. We work a lot in the areas of financial literacy, business planning, business strategies, government procurement, and also then working with them on financial projections and marketing. So if you haven't connected with the SBDC in your area, I know we have many on from many different areas in the state today, please reach out because we have a wealth of resources that we are anxious to deploy to all of you. And so with that, let me just take care of a little bit of housekeeping and tell you that this is a webinar. It is being recorded. If you have questions during the presentation, if you will, post those in the Q&A. You can find that at the bottom of your screen. I will be monitoring that throughout the presentation. And then towards the end, we will address those questions. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Penny. Welcome, Penny. And I'm going to let you take it from here.
Thank you, Cindy. I really appreciate it. I'm going to pull up the presentation and begin sharing my screen and want to welcome everyone. And I'm really excited to share this information with you. It's been fun researching it, and I've learned a lot. And it was fun for me because I love the outdoors, and living here in the beautiful Blue Ridge Mountains, it's a natural place to be interested in camping and RVing and so forth. So for all of you who are on, I welcome you, and I'm glad you're joining us. And again, as Cindy said, please feel free to ask questions throughout, but we will also allow time at the end of the presentation. So today we're going to talk about, we'll introduce myself a little bit. We'll talk about the opportunities, specifically get into the specifics of starting a campground versus an RV park, and then some of the resources that would be available to you. This is being brought to you, of course, by the Virginia Highlands Small Business Development Center. Cindy Fields is absolutely amazing. So if you live in the Abingdon area, as she said, please reach out to her. If you are joining us from somewhere else, reach out to your local SBDC office, because I can assure you they are amazing. A little bit about myself. I'm the founder of Chappelle Business Strategies. I'm a business consultant and a self-proclaimed serial entrepreneur. I come by it honestly. My parents were also. I've started a number of different businesses. And so now at this point in my career, I look forward to helping other entrepreneurs get started in their endeavors and helping them to kind of work the way through the kind of the unknowns of starting a business and what to look for. And as I mentioned, I'm a lover of travel and all things outdoors. And I'm sure that most of you who are joining us today are likewise. So I want to share some of the statistics to you that I found. There is actually a lot of information over the last couple of years, particularly about the travel industry and specifically about camping, RVing, and so forth. So the first statistic is that from 2014 to 2020, the number of campers increased 121%. I find that fascinating because that was before COVID started, or right at the beginning of COVID. So COVID definitely added impetus to that. People were looking for safe ways to spend time with family and vacation. And so during the pandemic, those numbers absolutely grew. The really interesting thing is that there's no sign that it's slowing down. People are still really enjoying the outdoors and using this avenue of campgrounds or RV parks as a preferred place to stay and spend time connecting with nature while taking a vacation as opposed to hotels. Camping accounts for 1/3 of all leisure travel in the US. So that number is growing. So it's a good time to get started in this business. And one of the things it mentions too is about 1 million Americans live full time in their RV. And the reason they do that is because they want to be able to pick up and move and see the countryside and see the entire country, travel across country if they so choose to do so. There are 86 million camping households. So that now you're talking about both tenters and RV people. 86 million households. An interesting, I just read a report recently that says there really are not enough campgrounds. About 76% of the available campgrounds and RV parks are overbooked, fully booked, and so it can be difficult for those who are looking for a camping spot or an RV spot to find one in a location, particularly in a desirable location. And since a little over half of all travelers prefer a mountain spot, we're kind of in an ideal area. This region is just beautiful, whether you're in the mountains or in the valleys, it doesn't matter. It's a beautiful region. And so people really love coming to the Appalachian area for vacation. Another statistic that was just recently released is that 2/3 of campers prefer to stay in campgrounds with amenities. Having said that, very few campgrounds, whether public or private, offer full amenities. And we're going to get into that a little bit more in a few moments. But what that means is that even though private campgrounds tend to have more amenities than public, there still is a void that could be filled in the market. So we're going to talk a little bit more. We're going to break this up into the two areas, whether you're looking to start a campground or an RV park. We're going to get into the specifics of each. So we mentioned about how those who go camping 3 or more times a year has skyrocketed in recent years. And specific to Virginia, in 2021, 12% of all travelers in Virginia who paid to stay somewhere chose to stay in a campground or RV park. And then as far as RV parks, I thought this was kind of interesting that successful RV park owners can earn between $50,000 and $90,000 a year. And there's a lot of resources out there to make sure that if this is the direction you choose to go, you can be successful. It mentions there are over 4 million registered RVs in the US. And as I mentioned, about 1 million of those living in them year round. So which are you interested in? Perhaps you're looking to start a campground that can accommodate both tenting camping as well as RVs, or maybe you're leaning towards one or the other. It honestly depends on your preferences, but also the land that you have or are going to obtain and local zoning. So some of the things that you need to think about when thinking about getting into this endeavor. First of all, is there a need in your specific area? In general, across the United States, there is a need. There's definitely a void that can be filled with campgrounds and RV parks. So in your area, wherever it is that you're logging in from, is there a particular need there? And so only you can do the research to answer that question. And what is the competition? So just because in your area there are 2 other campgrounds and 2 other RV parks, that doesn't necessarily mean there's not a need. Doing research, checking those facilities out. Are they always booked? Are they overbooked? Do they have to turn people away? Then the next consideration is, do you have a niche? Because even if there is room in those facilities that are near you and they say, oh no, we're not fully booked, there's, we could always take more, you can still capture a share of the market if you have a niche. Can you identify something that you can offer at your campground or RV park that the competition doesn't offer? And that may be something as simple as, are you near a river or lake? Because fishing vacations are a huge opportunity. There are millions spent every year by fishermen who travel the country looking for the next great fishing spot, whether it's fly fishing or whatever kind, reel fishing, whatever it is. And if you can offer that, that may be a niche that the other sites don't offer. Or maybe you're right in the mountains, or you have a particularly beautiful view. Whatever it is, figure out what your niche is, and you can still capture a part of the market, a piece of the market. But keep in mind too that the market is growing. Keeping in mind also, can you offer additional services, specialty services? And we're going to talk about a little bit more in a few minutes about what campers are looking for that you might be able to offer that the others don't. Another thing to keep in mind is the know-how. Do you have relevant experience? That doesn't mean that you have to have had a background in owning and operating a campground or an RV park, but do you have any experience in the outdoors? Do you have experience in camping and traveling in RVs? If you've done that enough in your life, then you kind of know what campers are looking for, and you know what things are missing or what you like and what you look for. Do you have relevant experience as far as starting a business? And again, if not, that's what the SBDC organization is there for. So be sure to look them up in your area. And there's always plenty of resources around you. Are you willing to put in the work to learn the ins and outs of this business? Because especially when you're getting into the RV part of the business, it can get a bit complicated. But really, for all of it, there is pretty significant amount of research that needs to be done to fully understand the business before you get started, just to make sure that you're setting yourself up for success. I'm going to pause for just a second, Cindy. Was there any questions that it seemed like I saw somebody that I should address now, or should we wait?
I think wait. I think I answer that question.
Great, thank you. So moving on, further considerations, land. Okay, do you have land that you're looking, wow, I've got all this extra land here, what can we do with it? How can I make some money off of it? Is that your situation? Or are you just thinking, I really want to start a campground. That would just be so fun to do. I'm going to need to go buy land or lease it. So basically consider the land, whether it's what you have or what you're looking for, and do your research as to whether you want to lease or buy. or if it's something you have, but you'll definitely need to check with your local municipalities for zoning restrictions. There are a lot. I tried to do some research just to see if I could find some information, and there are some general guidelines for the state of Virginia, but there are so many more when you hone in on the specific localities. Even Washington County in the southwest part of Virginia, once you get down into some of the specific areas, such as Abingdon, each town or city has their, or even area, has their own zoning. So you really need to check with local authorities to make sure that you understand what is required before you jump in and start the business. You'll need to obtain specific licenses and so forth. You'll also want to check out insurance requirements. What type of insurance will you need? What can you obtain? Liability and so forth. Do you have the capital, the funding needed to start this venture? Obviously, starting an RV park takes a lot more of investment up front than a campground, a more basic campground. RV parks, though, do have high resale value. And so if you're thinking you want to get this started and do it for a few years, but in the future you're looking to then, just do this for a short time and resell it, that may be a good option because they have very significant resale value. Another consideration is, do you just want to start your own and name it, Appalachian Campground or your own thing? Or do you want to purchase a franchise? So camp experts such as Jellystone and KOA, they offer franchises. And there are some advantages to purchasing a franchise versus just going it alone. So you want to look into those and consider those and weigh those in the pros and cons of each. In your research, here are just 3 places that you can go get some information research. Before I kind of explore these, I'm going to mention a couple of things. One is, this is just 3 sites. There are a lot, and a lot of these resources are included in the guidebook that will be emailed to you, that will be coming from the Highlands SBDC, and along with the link to the recording of this webinar. And in that guidebook, it will give some of the highlights from this webinar. It'll give some additional tips and information and a lot of links to additional resources. But I'm going to mention and go to a couple of these here. See if I can make this work. So this first one is Southwest Virginia. It's visit southwestvirginia.org. And people can come to this site to see what campsites are available, campgrounds, hotels, Airbnbs, bed and breakfasts, and so forth. It's all out here, and you can list your site out here. But come out here first and do some research. Search for campsites and find out what is in your area and do a little more research if you don't already know. But it's just a good idea to kind of see what other people, even outside of your area, are doing. How are they being successful? How are they attracting travelers and campers? And then let's see if I can get back over here to my presentation. The other one is it's rvia.org. It's the Recreational Vehicle is it International Industry Association. That's what it is. And they have a section here at the top of their screen, reports and trends. So this is interesting. They give you a demographic profile of RV owners, and then they give in other information specific to RVing. And it's good to know some of this information so that you know who your target audience is, how you're going to market to them, and so forth. And let me go to the last one here, Virginia Tourism Corporation. This also is a fascinating site because you learn about Virginia tourism as a whole, but there is a section of the top called research. And this is just a wealth of information, lodging reports, travel data, and profiles. And so this is where I actually got a lot of my information for this webinar. There's also a place up here for grants, and we'll talk about that, touch on that in a few minutes. So I can't stress it enough. Do research, do lots and lots of research, get help if you need to, get family and friends, everybody chipping in, doing the research before you actually dive in. Oops. Did I skip one? No, there we go. So talking a little bit about franchise and listing opportunities, there's the KOA, which has been around for decades and decades, very well recognized name. And they say that they have 41 million sessions for more than 22 million campers. So every year people do seek out a KOA when they're traveling across country, especially. That's kind of, they just know that somewhere along the way they're going to find a KOA. So definitely you can look into that, and that's a possible franchise opportunity. I'll get some details of that in just a second. And then there's Jellystone, the Yogi Bears Jellystone Parks. They were ranked #1 franchise opportunity for camping in all the years that you see there. Then there's Escapee. Now this is a fairly newcomer to the RV park. They recently started offering a franchise opportunity. They started out just opening and starting their own RV park, and then they opened another one, and people were just so thrilled with their version of the RV parks that they decided the only way they could really grow and expand to the level they needed was to start offering franchise opportunities. I would definitely recommend looking into this one, even though the name is not as recognizable. They have some amazing opportunities. Hip Camp. Now this is kind of a cool one. This is primarily for people who like to tent camp, but not necessarily. There's other options also. It's free to list with them, and it's not a franchise opportunity, but you can list on their site. And you keep, that kind of is a little confusing now that I look at it. They don't keep 90% of the booking fees, you do. Also something to check out is the ARVC membership. And that's, it's an American RV organization that you can join, and they will help you with information and mentoring and webinars and things like that. So getting started, the KOA, there's just a little bit of information. To get started with a KOA, there is a $30,000 franchise fee to get started, $1,750 annual fee, and then they keep 8% as a royalty fee, and there's a 2% advertising fee. So the average cost is between $2.25 to $4 million. That sounds like a pretty sizable chunk of money, and it is. But of course, it can be worth it because you're getting that name recognition, you're getting more travelers seeking you potentially because of the name recognition, and they have marketing and so forth that they do. Then there's Jellystone. They have just a few of the things that I found on there. A minimum to start, you have to have a minimum of 30 acres. You have to have $500,000 in liquid assets and $1 million net worth. The average cost is close to the same, anywhere from $2.5 to up to $10 million to get started with Jellystone. Escapee is a $20,000 franchise fee, a 5% royalty, 2% advertising, and they do ask for a 5-year agreement. So it's not quite as recognizable of a name, but the fees are less also. Some listing sites, there's ARVC. So people who do travel a lot or live in RVs or travel on RVs, many of them are members of the association, the ARVC association. And if you join, then you can have advantages and access to the members of that organization also. So let's talk about an independent campground. If you're looking at starting a campground that is tenting only, there's definitely an advantage to that over having RV parking spaces or an RV park. You're saving on infrastructure, for one thing. Just the sheer amount of paving and things that you need to do and hookups and so forth is really much more significant. You still need to check with your local municipalities and counties for zoning, licensing, permits, and so forth. What tenters are looking for, they need access to water and toilets and electricity. Now, it sounds like, oh, they want off the grid. For me, when I used to go tent camping a lot, I was going off the grid and I didn't want electricity. But with today's world being so connected with cell phones and so forth, people are looking for places to charge their phones and to plug in their lights or charge their lights or whatever it is. So there is a significant number of tent campers who do want access to electricity. And they honestly have come to kind of expect it at a campground. If they're just camping in the wild, they don't expect it. But one of the reasons they choose to pay for a campground is so they can have access to certain amenities. Some ongoing expenses you can expect with a campground is groundskeeping. You're not likely going to be able to keep up entirely unless you have significant help, your kids, family members, whatever, to help with this. You're going to want to hire a garbage collection service because there's still a significant amount of garbage that will be collected even by tent campers. And ongoing expense, of course, is utilities and annual fees and dues. Even if you're independent, you're going to want to join certain organizations and so forth to promote your business and your site. And so if you're not owning a franchise, it's going to be significant. It's going to be pretty minimal compared to if you were a franchisee. Going the extra mile. So what can you offer these tenters besides just the beautiful area that we live in? If you are near hiking trails that are already established, that's great. If you have a significant amount of land and you can put in your own hiking trails or you already have them there, that's even better. If you can give guided expeditions, so maybe you can take them on a tour of the area, the region. You can, at the very least, offer them suggestions on local things to see and do, providing them with some sort of a handout, a guide that whether it's on your website or a paper copy when they arrive, whatever it is, so that they can see what's in the area. That's going to be a huge draw and will help promote your site. Tenters like showers. They just do. You can only shower in the rivers so much. I speak from experience. I mentioned earlier that fishing vacationing is a huge business. So if you can accommodate fishermen in any special way by giving lessons or in fly fishing or whatever it is, or you can show them where the great fishing spots are, or take tours to specific fishing holes, whatever it is. These are all things that can separate you from competition and can help draw specific audiences to your campground. Then there's the independent RV park. So again, there's infrastructure that one of the reasons people like camping in an RV is because they like the amenities, they like the comfort. So one of the big things they look for is Wi-Fi. And so that is an amenity that one of the first things people check is, does this park have Wi-Fi available? Of course, they also want the full hookups. If you can offer full hookups, you're really setting yourself up to be ahead of about 25% of the privately owned RV parks, and way ahead of the public RV parks. So that means water, electricity, dumping stations, all of that. That's what they want, is to be able to hook up to power, be able to not have to use their holding tanks for water, and be able to dump right there their waste sewage before they leave to their next location or head home. Again, some of the same ongoing expensive groundskeeping, garbage collection. You're also going to need septic pumping, utilities, and your annual fees and dues. Also, some of the same extra things that you can offer: hiking, biking trails. While biking is also popular with the tent campers, it's especially popular with RV campers. They also like the guided expeditions, the fishing tours. And because a lot of these RV travelers are families, they really like to be able to have access to a playground for their area. It's even just a couple of little a swing and a slide or something that their children can access. Volleyball pits, sand pit for volleyball is great. Or pickleball, if you're into that, maybe a pickleball court. But just something that the family can do late in the afternoon while mom's fixing dinner. The family can stay busy, and after a long day of seeing the sights, they still want to be able to have something there on site to keep the family occupied and entertained, and to relax, honestly. So do you buy a pre-existing site, or do you build your own? Obviously, if you're buying one that is existing, it can save you a lot of time and the infrastructure costs, because it takes a significant amount of time, particularly since the pandemic, I should say. Getting anything built is a very lengthy process. Just getting the permits is a very lengthy process. I've been surprised helping businesses, and this is just how long it's taking to get permits and to get contractors and so forth on their schedule. So start planning early. Just a little word to the wise there. If you are looking at buying a pre-existing site, you may be able to get a great deal, or you may pay top dollar. It just depends. So if you're a good negotiator and a bargainer, then that may be a good thing for you. You can get started sooner if you can find one near you that is available for sale. What type of campground should you start? There's no one best answer, of course. It depends on your particular piece of land. Some areas draw campers that like to throw a tent down and a beautiful setting. That's pretty much all they need. But some people, of course, want a place to park their RV. They want biking trails. They want other things. So research what's available in your area, what's lacking, what niche you can fill. We kind of touched on that earlier. What's special about your site, or what can you make special about your site versus other sites? What can you offer these travelers that would be different and would draw them to your area? That's kind of wrapping it up in a nutshell. I was going to see if I had, I did mention earlier on the Virginia Visit, no, it's the Virginia Tourism site, virginiatourism.org, I believe it is. There was the research section, and there was a grant section. There are some grants and fundings that is available later this year, and it looks like there's going to be quite a bit coming up available next year. Not all will be applicable to what the business you're looking to, the campground, or in other words, not necessarily funding to get you started, but it could be marketing funds and things like that they might be able to help with. Yeah, let's see. Oh, and I was going to suggest to check with your local chamber of commerce. That's one of the resources that are in there that can be a big helpful resource to you to know what you need to do, where you can get funding. The local economic development center and so forth can be of great help to you. And Cindy Fields and other directors of your local SBDC organization can certainly help point you in the right direction. If they don't have the answers, they can know where to point you. Any questions, Cindy? Are there any questions you wanted to?
There was
No.
an earlier question, just said great webinar. She was taking notes and wanted to know if they would receive this information. So this is being recorded and this will be uploaded to our state library. So as soon as I have that link, I will share that with you. We also have a resource guide to go along with this. And of course, we will have penny slides as well. So I will be sharing that out with everyone. Everyone is saying great. One question is, what is recommended for how many RV or camp spaces to expect to accommodate on property?
That's a great question. And it really does depend on your property, the layout of the property. And there is absolutely resources out there, whether you go to one of the RV associations. There's also a resource. Let's see, let me see if I can pull this up. Because I have to get out of this first. Okay, let me this up. I want to go to, where did it go? I'm losing it here. I'm gonna stop. Oh, you did stop share. Okay. Stop sharing for a moment. I was going to pull up a site. This is in the workbook also, and it is how to start a profitable campground. And I thought this was excellent. It's presented by Zen Business. If you go to zenbusiness.com and search owning a campground, profitable campground, it gives some statistics there. The RV Association and so forth, they also provide excellent information about exactly figuring out how, based on the size of your property and the piece of land that you have that is available for paving and so forth. Remember, you have to allow not just for spaces for RVs, but space for them to turn around and maneuver and dumping and all of this. So you really, it really depends on your unique piece of property, but there's definitely resources out there to help guide you with that.
The other thing that I would add on that is that I've recently worked with someone who was working on setting up a private campground on his property. So a couple of things I would just tell you about ahead of time, just to be aware of. One is that your locality may have some requirements in terms of the road entrances into your property, into the campground, roads within the campground property. So those are things to be aware of. The other thing that often will dictate the number of spaces that you can have in addition to the acreage that you have available, and that is visiting with your environmental health agency, because depending on what utility services are available, you may have to put in additional septic tanks. If you're on sewer, that may not be so much of an issue, but if you're on septic, then that does dictate. Also, just your water supply source. So that's definitely a place to put on the kind of the top list of places you need to go and have conversations. If you're considering this, I would suggest that you take a map to your environmental health office and sit down and talk with them about what you want to do and let them kind of guide you on that, because you'll be ahead as you're meeting with your localities in addition to that. So the other thing that, we experienced in this other project was that, typically going to the zoning committee, you're talking with them about what you want to do. They many times are going to give you guidance and suggestions on what they want to see. And then once you do that, then you're going before perhaps a board of supervisors or a city council to maybe take that one step further in getting that approval process. So it's really important to make sure that you're making those connections and relationships, and you're trying to get everybody on one page. It's interesting. I love the research that Penny provided here, because I think sometimes that localities, economic development authorities, they may not be up to speed on all of this information. So you need to be able to educate them on that, as if you're doing a presentation, if you're preparing a business plan. And also then the other thing is to look at some people you might want to partner with. Penny mentioned that, campgrounds develop around attraction areas. So how many attractions are there in the area that might be willing to give you a letter of support and say, yes, that, they're happy to have you in the community, and that you all have determined a way that you might partner together. That's really important to have that community support. Also, your surrounding neighbors can be your biggest thing or your biggest enemy. And so if you're trying to start this campground business and you haven't made friends with your neighbors and really explain to them what you want to do and give them a sense of comfort, they may go and speak against you, and that may ultimately end your project. So those are just some tips that I would provide. A couple other questions. How much camping takes place in the winter months? And can I do this year round or only in the summer, spring, and fall?
That's a great question. And I don't unfortunately have actual statistics of it. It really does vary by area. Here in the Appalachian region, I think you can absolutely attract visitors year round. One thing that I didn't touch on that I actually meant to was the trend of glamping. And that started a number of years ago. And when it first started, because I was, like I said, I was the type of tent camper that was off the grid and I wanted to just live off the land. I thought, oh, that's a fad that'll quickly fade, but not everyone was like me. So to your point, if you can accommodate even a few sites that offer glamping, in other words, you can have some heat in there, you can provide accommodations that would make it comfortable for them in the winter time, then absolutely you can keep your campground up and running year round. As far as RVs, kind of the same thing. There is definitely going to be a dip in travelers, RV travelers in the winter time, but it really depends on what you can offer and your marketing as to how big of a dip you'll take in the winter months.
Great answer, Penny. And so then there's another question about, can I hire a management company for a campsite that is far away from me? Now that sounds to me like, that's another entrepreneurial initiative that's waiting to happen.
Right.
I'm sure that there are probably some opportunities out there for companies that might be able to do that, maybe that manage other properties that might be able to do that. Penny, any comments?
Yeah, and it's interesting because there are software companies and organizations that are designed to help people who have multiple sites. And because you can't be in all of them at once, so they have a way to kind of aggregate the booking process and the bookkeeping and all of that, so that if you do own multiple sites, it makes it a lot easier. So there are absolutely organizations and companies who are set up to manage, but I haven't done a lot of research on that. I don't know how many there are. And yes, if this is something you really want to get into, maybe that could be your side business, is starting the management of other people's facilities.
When someone asked, how can I utilize Airbnb into this camping business? So again, I'm going to say that if any of you have registered for the Airbnb workshop that is on June the 15th, that would probably be a great workshop for you to look at. But also, we've had to flip the time on that. The time on that one will be at 3 p.m. on June the 15th. I will be sending out an additional notice on that. So keep that in mind, put that on your calendar. I think that, one thing I would say about that though is having camped at a number of large campgrounds, a lot of times you do see permanent campsites. And if the campground allows that, then you can rent those out through Airbnb. Again, it kind of depends on, what are the agreements with the campground property that you're in. But if this is a private campground that you're looking at or that you have, then, I think there's opportunities there to do that. I'm sure that, Penny will give us some better resource information next week in regards to what Airbnb would require that you have to be able to work with them.
And the one thing I will add to that too is I think it's you need to check with local zoning to see what's allowed. But more and more families are traveling together, and there are families who have, this family unit likes to tent, this family unit likes to be in an RV, and grandma and grandpa want to be in a really comfortable spot. So maybe you have a little cabin or something for them. So think outside the box and think about who the audiences you might be attracting and what would they be looking for. And that could be something that would absolutely set you apart from other campsites, is if you can accommodate an entire family who has diverse interests in their camping.
Absolutely. It looks like we have Kelly Williams on with Virginia Tourism Corporation. I'm sure we probably have some other VTC employees on here as well. I know from our area, they were very interested in this. But her comment was that she just wanted you all to know that if you wanted to learn more about the Virginia Tourism Corporation's resources, that you should connect with your local destination development manager to find out what different opportunities would exist through VTC's marketing efforts. They also offer, some loan and grant programs as well. And I do encourage you to reach out to them, but reach out to your SBDCs, because there's usually a really close partnership between them. The SBDCs usually keep a pulse on, what opportunities are out there with VTC. And so thank you so much for joining us today, Kelly. I don't see any other questions at this time, so I'm just going to say, if there are any other questions, if you all want to add those quickly to the Q&A. Is it possible to put tiny homes on these properties? I would say, again, you need to go back to your localities and check the regulations for zoning to see, what is allowed.
But it's a great idea. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Looks like we might have a few more coming in.
Okay.
Looks like lots of kudos on the workshop today. So thank you all so much for joining. I know that we had about 84 registered, and we have had 30 on today. It looks like we might have had a few people that had difficulty joining, but if you were registered and didn't get to hear this live, then I'm assuming that you all will get to watch this at your leisure. And feel free to reach out to me or to Penny, to your local SBDCs. We're happy to help you in any way. So thank you all so much for joining, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.